We are live. How is everybody? I feel like I'm a couple minutes late today, even though we don't really have a set time. I feel like I woke up about 5 minutes later than normal, so I apologize if you've been waiting. Some of these cameras look a little foggy. Let me deal with that. What up, Eddie? How are you, man? Sorry about the foggy cameras. Our holiday special is live. It took us a little while. We normally have it done by November, but we were working with our Chinese partners and suppliers to get it done this year. So it took a little longer to get all the pricing that we need. But we are launching it. This year it's pretty awesome. This year it's like all inclusive, man. That's all right, Eddie. I just got here. So yeah, this year our special is super all inclusive. It will include relocation, which includes immigration, right? So it includes immigration, all your immigration paperwork, all those legalities will be taken care of. It includes land in Deani, right? And so you'll have land near the beach. It includes bond laddering so that you have passive income for, up to 10 years. The first 10 years you're here, you wouldn't have to work or anything like that. You'd have your passive income kicking in. It's 6:21 a.m. It can be upgraded to include a car, but the biggest thing is it includes a house, right? So it includes a almost 1,600 square foot house. It's like 1,594 square feet, right? Fully built on the land in Deani. So it includes all of those things. If you pump it up to include a car. You'll have a SUV with a 7 year, 200,000 kilometer warranty. 200,000 kilometers is like, oh, math is not my strong suit. Like 124,000 miles, right? So 124,000 mile warranty, or 7 years, whichever comes first, on a brand new car, right? So you'll have a brand new SUV built into that, right? So that is the holiday special that is rolling out with the car. It is 215,000 with the car. Without the car, it's 185,000. So it's a significant savings that typically you wouldn't even be able to pull off, but because we have the new Chinese partners, they have made it way more reasonable for us to get some of the housing materials that we need. So we're able to pull it off this time. So 215, everything: car, house, land, immigration, passive income for hopefully the next 10 years, right? And the whole nine all wrapped into one. So that's amazing. It's essentially a retirement package. Yeah, it is. Hey, Talisa. So, yep, that is what's going on. I wanted to go ahead and let that be known before we get started here. It's Sunday, so it is FAQ day. You guys can ask anything you want. If you guys want to come up on the Facebook side, I'm sorry, on the TikTok side, you guys can do that. I don't think I can do that on any other platform. So if you start hearing additional voices on some of the other live streams, it's because somebody requested to come up and ask a question on the TikTok stream, and that is it. All right. Eddie, how's the family, man? How's your lady? She's Kenyan, isn't she? Cool, cool. Where's she from? Like which tribe? Like obviously she's Kenyan. Which tribe? Oh, Kericho. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. So she's what, Kalenjin? Kericho? Kisii. Ah, very cool. Kisii was the first place I ever lived in Kenya. I have a special affinity for Kisiis. Very, very nice. Is she a Seventh Day Adventist? Every Kisii I know is a Seventh Day Adventist. Yeah, like every tribe. I can't think of a tribe that isn't, so I'm gonna stick with that. Every tribe is also a town. I can't think of a tribe that doesn't have a town. Maybe among the Mejikenda, because Mejikenda means like the nine united tribes. So there's a bunch of different little tribes in the Mejikenda. So, but even with them, I feel like they all have like their own town. So like Kisii, there's Kisii Town, and then there's a bunch of areas where Kisiis, live. But the main kind of capital of Kisii is Kisii Town. There's Kikuyu Town. There's every. I can't I can't think of a tribe that doesn't have like their own central location. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I run into a few that aren't. But you know what's funny? The ones that I run into that aren't are American. So in New Jersey, there's a strong Kisii community because back in the 60s or something, there was a Kisii guy who got into admissions at Jersey City College. And when he got into admissions at Jersey City College, he was just like admitting, foreign students left and right, but they were all like Kisii. And so there's a pretty significant concentration of Kisiis in New Jersey. Kisigi, Kisigi. Hmm, I've never heard of that one. You mean in Kenya or just in general? I've never heard of Kisigi in Kenya. But every tribe has like no every well I mean I don't know, I shouldn't say no, I've never heard of it, but every tribe has like modifiers in their own language to mean different things about the people of the tribe, right? So like, excuse me, so like there's like which is Kisi is the name of the language. Abagusi is the name of the people, right? And so like that Abba that goes before it and the changing of like the K to the G, then it's like a difference within, the same tribe, of course, but a difference in the descriptor, like what they're describing. So there's a lot of that. So that almost seems like it could be something like that. Like maybe it's like the land of Kisi or like whatever, but with that little modifier on the end. Because there's a tribe in maybe Ghana called Kisi, but it's spelled different. So so like there was somebody who did their DNA test and all of that, and it came back that they had Kisi from Kenya. And of course, Kenyans are always surprised. Like they think the East was never caught up in the Western trade. So like, are you sure? And so they'll always like ask those people like, is it Abagusi or is it, Kisi, which would be the other Kisi in either, it's either Ghana or Togo or like somewhere over there. There's another one, but it's spelled differently. But that Abagusi is how they, you know, figure out whether it's their people or those other people that just have a similar name. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's 48 counties, so there's more than 48 tribes. I should know this. I gotta look into how many tribes are here. The same thing when I lived in China. That's one of the things they don't like really talk about. And so, oh wait, hold on. Kipsy. Oh, Kipsigis. Okay, there was no P there, so I was reading it as Kisigi. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, Charles. Yeah. So wait, is that because you said that she was in Kericho? Is that where she is? Is she Kipsigi or is she Kisi? Oh, she's okay. She's Kipsigi. Okay, then forget all that Kisi stuff I just told you about. Because when you said Kericho, I thought that she was Kalenjin. All right, all right. Yeah, we did a school in Kericho, and then it was a mess. We did the school in Kericho, built the school, all of that stuff. A bunch of folks from the United States sponsored the kids in the school until 12th grade, right? Which they call it something different over here, but essentially K through 12, their stuff was sponsored, and then they started dropping off. And so then we had to come back in and do another program, and do a farm, and then the farm passes, you know, all of its profits through to the mothers of the students, you know, to pay like the school fees and all that, and to make a little extra cash and all of that stuff. So yeah, but that was the time that we spent in Kericho. I enjoyed Kericho. Kenya, yeah, exactly. Yep, Kenya does have more than 48 tribes. I just can't think of the number. It has 48 counties, but I can't think of how many tribes, because like the Mejikenda are like 9 tribes in one right there. So, you know, there's a bunch of that, like little sub tribes and stuff like that. So I can't think of how many. But China's the same way. China has a bunch of tribes, you know, and they all speak a different language, and they all have like different clothing, and they just never talk about it that way. But China has multiple tribes. She wrote it out as Kipsigi once, but I mistook her verbally saying Kisi. Oh, got you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, nothing wrong with that. I got you. I got you. Yeah. It'd be rare. Like obviously everybody can live everywhere, but I don't think I've ever met a Kisi in Kericho. But they're everywhere. They're one of the, I think they're the third largest. Kikuyu is the largest tribe by far. It's like 75% of the people. Like they're the largest tribe by far. But I want to say Kisi's like third or fourth largest. Kalenjin's pretty big too, you know. So hey, Chrissy. No, today's Sunday. So on a Sunday, it's just an open FAQ, right? Every Sunday, I just let people ask whatever they ask. And it's important to note that I'm live on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. So I might be talking to someone and you can't see the comments. So I pause. I try to like read the comments. I try to be cognizant of that and not just have a conversation with somebody where 2/3 of the live can't see what's going on. But there's that. So right now, currently, we're just talking about the different tribes in Kenya because one of the viewers on the YouTube side, his wife is from a particular tribe out here, and we did some charity work in that area. We built the school, and then we built a farm to support the school operations. So have a bit of a in real life connection to that area. No, but that's cool, Eddie. Is she tall? Kalenjins are known for being tall and strong, and the running, of course. All the long distance runners that win like the Olympics and all that, they're mostly Kalenjin. Yeah, because like so, I keep bringing up this Medjugorje, right? And ask ChatGPT about it if you want. But there's a tribe called Medjugorje, and what Medjugorje translates into is like the unity of the nine tribes or something like that, right? So the government sees it as one tribe, but by definition, like the name of the tribe is we are nine tribes acting as one. Right, so there's a bunch of additional tribes that everybody knows exist, and but some of their recognition is underneath another tribe. Is that true, Tina? I gotta look that up. That might be true. I know when we did our due diligence coming here, that was over 15 years ago, so that might be true now. But I know they're still the largest, though, aren't they? They're still the largest tribe. Even if that is true, I know I've seen the tribe population lists recently, and they're still number one. All right, all right. She is tall. Okay. Yeah, Tina's saying that Kikuyus are currently 22% of the country, which might absolutely be true. I have not done that due diligence in over 15 years. So, see you, Chrissy. Have a great time. We have a Caricho friend. Her name is Olivia. Um, she's always joking about how she can beat us in a race. She's like, by the time you get up, I'll be there. Just waiting for my VA rating to go through, and then I'm on my way. All right, brother, we here. We looking for you. We'll be running that special, which may align with you. Without the car, it's about the same thing that we were talking about, but there's a couple extra features in it, so we can like talk about that at a later point in time. But we'll be running that until about February. We won't run this special too long because if we run it too long, we run the risk of not being able to do the full bond laddering in the 1 year. Right. So we're trying to guarantee that we'll be done with the bond laddering the first year you're here type of thing. Right. So if we wait too long and we miss too many months, we might find ourselves in a situation where we have to buy like the last two bonds the year after. And so we don't want to under promise or over promise and under deliver. Right. So we'd rather under promise and over deliver. So yeah, we'll run that probably until the end of February, or the beginning of March, however you want to look at it. And then that'll be it. Then everything will go back to normal prices after that. Yeah, yeah. Nah, Kenya's on point, man. Kenya's definitely it. It's definitely a gateway country too. Like things that work in Kenya then start working in other parts of the continent. So it's like I don't know if that's true anymore. Pennsylvania is called the Keystone State for a reason. I'm not sure it lives up to that reason anymore, but it used to be that Pennsylvania was the keystone to the country as well. So whatever worked in Pennsylvania would then spread to the rest of the United States. I'm not sure how true that is anymore, but right now, Kenya is like the keystone country on the continent, or sub-Saharan. Jesus. Are you going to Malindi?
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good day. Take a lot of video.
Bye.
I prefer Kenya over Central America or Asian countries. Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. I lived in the Philippines. Spent a lot of time in Phuket, Bangkok. Spent a lot of time in Singapore because we do trust funds, and Singapore is a really good place for trust funds. And then trust funds lead to family offices, and Singapore again is a really good place for family offices. So definitely spend some time in Singapore in that regard. And Singapore is great, whatever. But Singapore, you can't have dual citizenship. So for most people, it's not a primary option. It's normally a sacrificial lamb option because it is so good for family offices. You normally take your family member who's going to run the family office and you let them give up all the other citizenships that your family has earned for them and let them just run things in Singapore. But been all over, Asia, Vietnam, South Korea, and all of that. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. I get it, especially folks who haven't really been anywhere else. I definitely get, the affinity for it. But for me, Kenya's way better, way better. But Southern China is like, I would call it maybe number two, maybe number three. You know what I mean? So there's that. But definitely top of my list would be Kenya for sure. I like the Caribbean, but island nations are tough, man. Everything's imported. It makes everything expensive. It restricts opportunity. Island nations are difficult, and the ones that do it really, really well, kudos to them. But they're difficult. Kate the barber. That's my personal barber, the best in Deani. Thanks for liking the live, Kate. Good to see you. My grandpapa came from Kisi and brought land in Kericho in the 70s. Very cool, man. Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. Yeah, Kisi has a special place in my heart. The first place I lived in Kenya was a place called Sunika, which is right outside of Kisi town. Yeah, for sure. And the hurricanes, yeah, man. Yeah. Actually, when we were on our way to China, I want to say 2 weeks earlier. 2 weeks earlier, they had like a hurricane hit. We were like, oh, but by the time we got there, they were good. But yeah. Oh yeah.
Space is too small.
Nah, it's fine. Yeah, just leave it there. Yeah, that's fine. Thank Kate the Barber. You guys check Kate the Barber out. Kate, say something so they can follow your profile. Right? Yeah, no, Kate's pretty good. She must have left, but Kate's pretty good. My fiance in Nairobi is in. I'm assuming in is in. I do that all the time with my phone as well. Is in Nairobi and seems to want to stay close, but definitely a second home near where you live. Yeah, yeah. Knows. I mean, who knows what's going on with her family and all that. So there's definitely a lot of that, especially like young folks who aren't who aren't over the city yet. They seem to be all about, Nairobi and all that. But yeah, a lot of folks will have two. They'll have a house in the city, especially if they have business in the city. So they'll have a house in Nairobi somewhere, and then they'll have like a beach house out here. And then when they're not at the beach house, they'll put it to work for them. So it'll be doing Airbnb for them or whatever, which works because typically out here you'll get Airbnb in dollars, not in shillings. So you can make money in dollars out here, and it's like the Airbnb rates are like the same as they would be in the United States essentially because it's a tourist area. So the rates are different here than they would be in Nairobi. So like a week of somebody staying here would get you as much money as like a month of somebody staying in Nairobi. Sometimes depending on what kind of property you got. So a lot of people do that. Ah, aha. Okay. Very nice. Very nice. We were what were we looking at? There was a school in Getsere Upper, Getsere Lower. Had a There's like a school there, and the the toilets were ridiculous, Charles. And so we were doing a project to rehab the school's lavatories and all of that, and break them all down and build new ones and all of that. So yeah, man, definitely super cool. I got to get back up to Kisi. Maybe I'll go spend the weekend at Camel Park or something. I saw an Airbnb in the mountains there that reminds me of home. Yeah, yeah. There's a ton of different terrains that which is super cool because it allows people to kind of live wherever they want, in kind of whatever climate they want. So that's pretty cool. There's definitely places where it's high enough in the mountains that it's actually kind of cold, even though we're on the equator. And then there's tropical areas like the area I live in, and then there's areas that are kind of in between. So definitely something for everyone. Yeah, man. I'm trying to remember when I was in Sunica. I used to go to this cafe on the main road. I think it was called Bless Cafe. Um, I used to go there every morning for for breakfast, which was like super simple. It was like mandazi and chai or something. You know what I mean? It was something really ridiculously simple, nothing crazy. But yeah, I enjoyed my time in Sunica. Had a rough time with those hole in the grounds. Where you talk about in Nairobi? Yeah, sometimes they do. The other thing is Nairobi's infrastructure is so old that yes, it's a city and all of that, and that's great, but it's old. Like it's been there since independence and beyond, right? And some of their like sewer systems were designed for the original, planning, which was like a bunch of villas, and stuff like that. And so now you have 1,000 unit apartment building using the same sewer pipes as the pipes that were designed for 8 houses. But that's essentially everywhere, unless you do a full public works reboot. That's essentially what you're going to look at anywhere that's growing. Oh, look at one last thing. Oh, yeah, I hear that. It's a nice place. Yeah, 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 yeah. I appreciate Kisi for sure. You're in the northwest. Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Joint Sequoia areas like that northwest, or a little further south than that. Mm. All right. Gotcha. Gotcha. Nothing wrong with that, man. I feel like that's in the top two most beautiful regions in the U.S. Anyway, yeah, I would assume, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess Oregon is actually pretty big, but yeah. My TikTok phone doesn't travel well. It's actually the phone that has my US SIM card and my Chinese SIM card, but it doesn't have a local SIM card. The phone I use for YouTube and the phone I use for Facebook have local like data service, right? Um, so I gotta like grab a MiFi or something, so I can start having some of these, morning lives from like other locations, so I can take you away from our apartment compound and like start having. We're actually gonna like go to our farm compound in a month or two anyway, so you'll start seeing things from there instead. But wanted to start doing some stuff from like the beach and all that. Give you guys some different, locations. Hey, Judy, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thanks for joining the fan club. Well, a US, it will. Yeah, it will. I mean, and it does matter, of course, who you have, right? T-Mobile, if you have the right data plan, it'll work and you'll have data, right? And you'll be fine. You have to have like the unlimited data plan. I don't know what it costs anymore. I've been out of the United States for a long time, but T-Mobile worked well. Um, and I had it actually for quite a while. What also happens with like bringing your US SIM card is apps like TikTok work off a SIM card. They don't care about VPN. They don't care about none of that. They care about what SIM card is in your phone, right? So you guys who are seeing me in the U.S. right now, Robert in Oregon, Eddie, you're in Central, right? You guys that are seeing my live pop up in the U.S., you're seeing my live pop up in the U.S. because I have a U.S. SIM card. That's why the TikTok phone has a U.S. SIM card in it, right? If I go live on one of these other phones that has a Kenyan SIM card, you guys wouldn't even see the live. I mean, unless you're following me and you have notifications on, like it wouldn't even pop up. So that's why I keep a US SIM card in there, but I don't do T-Mobile anymore because like that's just too expensive. I don't actually need to use the phone. I just need the SIM card. So I use one called Red Pocket, and Red Pocket charges me, I want to say it's $30 a year, right? Essentially, just to have the SIM, because there is some service attached to it. Yeah, Judy, there is some service attached to it, but like you're not using the service. I want to say it's like 20 minutes a month. Like it's something stupid that you would never use in real life, but to just have a US actual SIM, it makes sense. My AT&T phone international plan worked great. I gave a phone to my lady, but she can't figure out how to make it work for her there. She just needs a SIM, right? Maybe the reason it might not be working is it might be locked. So that's the other thing. If you're going to use a US phone, you got to go to your carrier. Even if it's paid off, sometimes that doesn't unlock the phone. Sometimes you have to ask for the phone to be unlocked, even if you own the phone. If you're making payments on the phone, you probably can't unlock it. All right. So if that's the case, then you either need to make a decision. You either pay off the phone, right, or buy like a lesser phone if you have like big expensive, phones, specifically for Kenya, or just buy a phone when you get here for like a couple $100, and then have like a Kenyan phone. But there's a lot of that, especially like with iPhones. For some reason, and I don't know if maybe they've changed this over the years, but originally when we were having to deal with it, the iPhones needed to be unlocked by iPhone. So like even if you paid off your iPhone for T-Mobile or whatever, they would give you a number to call like the Apple store, and then I guess the Apple store would double check that your thing was like paid off and then like unlock it. So, you know, There used to be a thing with Android phones back for T-Mobile where there was actually an app, a T-Mobile Unlock app, and so you download this app on the App Store, and you'd be able to unlock your phone just via the app. So just paying it off does not typically automatically unlock it. I did unlock it, and it's paid for. Just need to maybe re-verify that it's unlocked. Yeah, yeah, definitely do that. And still keep the U.S. number. Yeah, I mean, the U.S. service automatically gives you the U.S. number. I don't use it for anything, but I do have a U.S. number sitting there. Sometimes it comes in handy. Like sometimes I'll go look it up because sometimes I might be trying to do something or log into something online that wants to send me a U.S. like text message and won't take a foreign number. So I guess in that way it's helpful. And sometimes like Google Voice won't work. Like sometimes they can detect that it's like a VoIP number and they won't allow like Google Voice to work. So in that way, it kind of makes a bit of sense as well. Yeah, man, I'm here. Well, I shouldn't say I rarely leave the country. I leave the country all the time. I very rarely go to the United States, but but I'm here. Yeah, I'll be keeping my number for family and friends here in the United States. If you're going to do that, then I do recommend Google Voice because you can transfer like your cell phone number to Google Voice, and then like you can call on Google Voice the data, and you can text back and forth and all of that. So if it's about like your family keeping in touch with you, then I recommend that Google Voice thing for sure. Yeah, Eddie. Sometimes after you unlock it, the SIM lock turns back on. So if the SIM lock is on, then I think when they enter in the new SIM, that SIM should have a lock code that they can unlock. So they should be able to handle that for her, like at a Safaricom store or whatever she's using. Yeah, yeah, definitely, and it's free. Like you can make call it's funny, you can call back to the United States as though you were in the United States. That's free or whatever included in the service. But if you call internationally, you can like put money on your Google Voice account to call like other places. So like for me, sometimes I need to call China, and so I'll do that through Google Voice instead of doing it from here and all of that. All right, Robert, have a good one, brother. Thanks for hanging out. One of the things that you want to do, or at least that we tell our clients to do when they're first coming over here, is to download the SendWave app before they get over here. It's essentially Zelle for Africa, and you want to download it before you get here because sometimes they'll do a verification and they'll like call you and verify that you are who you are, and you have to send like a picture of yourself holding your ID card and like all the stuff that the bank verification stuff that happens. But once you have your Zelle set up, then you don't have to bring any money with you, right? Because it's or Sendwave, right? But the African version of Zelle works exactly the same way. So just like how in Zelle your bank account or your debit card is attached, and then money goes right from your bank account into whoever you're sending the money to. In this situation, money goes directly from your bank account directly into your phone, right? Directly to your M-Pesa, which is accepted everywhere. There's nowhere that doesn't accept M-Pesa. Maybe like Masai Market. I guess I shouldn't say that, but if they don't accept M-Pesa, then they're being difficult because there's a business still for M-Pesa, and there's just I can send money to your phone directly, right? So if they're not allowing you to do either, then they're just being difficult. Yeah, 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 definitely. You get good rates on it as well. Like you'll typically, like sometimes I gotta show my bank. I gotta screenshot my Sendwave app and show my bank because I'll be, transferring funds from the US, and then they'll give me a rate, and I'll be like, all right, so should I go use SendWave, or are you going to give me a real rate? And then they'll normally match the SendWave rate. So you typically get a good foreign exchange rate. The only reason I even bother with that instead of just using SendWave is because SendWave is capped. So if I got to send $30,000 over here, SendWave is not actually a viable option, but I still use the rate that they present as a negotiation. Just wire transfer, large amounts, typically just a wire transfer. You can have a USD account, so you can wire money over in USD, and then you can sell it later, like when the rate is better. So that's always an option. Yeah, it's a pretty solid app for sure. And you can put money in it. Now, it's not a bank, I don't think. I'm almost positive it's not. So it's not FDIC insured. So having money in it is always a risk, because if the company goes under, you lose the money that's in it. But you can definitely have, like, I always have a few bucks in it, just as a matter of if anything crazy happens, I can, and I don't have like cards on me for whatever reason, and I can always just send money, the money that's in it, to myself instantaneously, or to whoever instantaneously. So it's kind of like a little emergency fund in there, but only as much as you are, feeling okay losing. That's the thing with these apps that aren't actually banks. If the business goes under, your money is lost. It's not FDIC insured. Yes, yes, actually, and it's the same numbers. It's just that the currency is different. So the question was, is there an FDIC in Kenya? It's not FDIC, obviously. It might actually be KDIC, but there is the same program, and it protects a quarter million, same as the U.S., but it doesn't. It's not in dollars. So, but yes, it does exist. That's a great question. I've never even thought to talk about that before. Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to get to that. Typically, what happens is, especially when we immigrate people here on a total package, when they get here, they immediately have more passive income than they need. Because for right now, the bond market is incredible, and when they come on a total package or an ultimate package, they get a package of bonds that they own that pays them every month of the year. So every month of the year, they get passive income here, and so a check just comes from the government every single month, and it should cover their monthly expenses. And that's something that our professionals and our lawyers and all that go over with them to figure out what their monthly expenses are, right? And all of that. So after they've been here, they now have the freedom to start investing, above and beyond the sovereign debt that they own, that's paying for essentially their lifestyle. And so that's where their diversification kind of kicks in, and so then they can start investing in IFTs, markets, whatever it is that their heart desires, and start diversifying their portfolio. Typically, they already have land. Like if they have an ultimate package, they already have land. We've already built them a house. Um, they've already gotten a brand new car. So they have a car, they have land, they have a house. So that is part of their initial diversification is they have full equity because the land's always paid off. So they have full equity in the house and the land. And then they have this sovereign debt that we purchased for them, that's paying them monthly. So that's typically where they start. That's where the diversification starts if they come through us. I'm pretty sure we're the only ones who do that. So any other relocation, you might be able to get land, as far as finding a place to live and all of that. But there's no one else that does sovereign debt. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. But beyond that, some people don't. There's a lot of folks that just focus on land. Like they don't really, they have the sovereign debt if they came in that way, so they got that for the next 10, maybe 20 years. But they just buy land, sell land, buy land, do Airbnb, whichever strategy they're working on. Some are holders, so they buy and hold. Some, those are typically the people doing short-term rentals and all of that. Some are flippers, so they'll buy, put something up and flip it, so it just depends on the strategy, I suppose. But there's a lot of folks that, yeah, they never really diversify. They just lean into land. There hasn't been like a land slump here. Like even during COVID, real estate grew at 6% a year. So, and that's just like regular land that hasn't been cultivated in any way, shape, or form. What's the holiday special? The holiday special is an all-inclusive special that includes your bond laddering, right? So that includes your passive income that should cover, everything while you're here. It includes a 50 by 100 plot near the beach in Deani. It includes construction of a home if you upgrade to that. It includes your immigration package, so whichever immigration permit that we're going to do, and then the legal team processing all of that for you. So it's essentially a all-inclusive relocation package that allows you to have passive income the instant you hit the ground and do your thing. So that's what we're doing on the holiday special side. You'll start seeing stuff for that tomorrow. I'm pretty sure social media is going to start putting that out on all of our social media outlets tomorrow. So you'll start seeing like little ads for that. Yes, and it can include a car. You can upgrade to a car. No, it's just sovereign debt. Sovereign debt is just another way of saying bond. So your capital is preserved in the bond because at the end of the maturity, whatever capital is there gets kicked back to you. And by whatever capital is there, it's because some of them are amortized. So when it's amortized, they give you your capital back slowly over time. So there are situations where like they give you like 50% of your capital back, and then they give you 30% back, and then they give you the last 20% at the end of the term. But your full capital always goes back to you because it's sovereign debt. So your principal, your initial principal will always come back to you. Yeah, we're only gonna run it until till like February because we want to make sure that we can guarantee everybody the passive income. So the longer we go, the harder that becomes. Kin 9, hey, how's it going? What part are you in? I live in Deanny Beach. Is there anything wrong with Nairobi? No, no, there's nothing wrong with Nairobi. It's just a city, and I didn't want to live in another city. I come from Philadelphia, so Kin 9, where's that? That is Kenya. Yeah, so when I left the United States and I came to Kenya, I didn't feel like living in like another Philly. You know what I mean? So I just chose the beach. But there's nothing wrong with and we're like we're raising a kid, and so we wanted to raise a kid in a place where there's no real violent crime. And so down here the violent crime rate is like under 1%. And so that's helpful, you know. Hey Dia, how are you? Good to see you. I'm moving there next week. Uh, how you get bread ex-military? Um, the ex-military part doesn't necessarily help you with any of that. There is, if you're service connected, then you can use your medical here though. Love from Kenya. Thank you. I'm in Kenya right now, but thank you very much. Coming from New York, yeah, yeah. It should be simple. Like coming from places like New York, LA, DC, Baltimore, even Philly, the what we pay to survive in those places is so much more than what it costs to survive here. It actually creates a certain level of like ease in the relocation. As long as you have a solid team helping you get everything together, it should be relatively easy for you to make that work. But I would definitely have either a business going on or like like our clients, they bond ladder, the ones who don't have like businesses and all that going on. So you know, close. I'm bringing my business there. No help. I'm doing it. Oh, careful. In order to bring a business here, you got to have an investor permit, or else it'll be illegal, and they'll shut you down. So an investor permit requires you to put up $100,000 in a Kenyan bank account and have the permit paperwork processed properly. So you definitely don't want to illegally immigrate and illegally work without a work permit in someone else's country. So just be careful. This is why professionals are needed, because you don't want to make $1 million your first year and then the government comes in and seizes all your assets and takes that $1 million from you because you didn't do it the right way. Yeah, every immigration department around the world, I can't think of an exception. They all essentially have the exact same policies. So you can't even volunteer in a country for free without a work permit, because the mindset of immigration is if you didn't have it like that and weren't in a position to volunteer, then a local person would be able to get a job, right? So, and America sees it that way too. You go to America on a tourist visa and you volunteer at the church and they catch you, you are working without a work permit and you will be barred, 10-year bar from the United States. So it's the same thing. Where you always want to make sure that you have the permission to work in a country where you're not a citizen. For a investor permit, investor permits are about 12 grand, and you have to have that 100,000. There's no way around that. So you got to put 100,000. The way that Kenya looks at it is, if you're going to come open a business here, you need to have at least enough runway to operate that business for a couple of years. So you're not like hiring people and then the business fails in 3 months and then all those people are out of a job. So the way that they essentially prove that is they make you put 100,000 in a local account. You don't have to pay it to anybody. It's not a fee for the investor permit. It's proof. It's put up or shut up, right? So if you're going to do a business, you put up the 100,000. They'll check your bank account. Then you go through the issuance of the permit and all of that, which just the issuance fee on a permit. Like if you get a permit for 3 years, the issuance fee on that 750,000 Kenyan shillings, right? So it's like almost $6,000 just at the issuance fee. So that's not the application fee. That's not the security bond. That's not the biometrics. That's not the foreigner ID. That's like, you know what I mean? So it's about 12,000 to get a maxed out permit, but you got to show 100,000 in order to get an investor permit. Once you get an investor permit, you have the legal right to operate a business here, even though you're not from here. Where are you from? If I'm from Philadelphia. I live in Kenya. This TikTok thing. TikTok is the only live that makes me solve a puzzle to prove I'm still live. There we go. I don't know what that's about. In some lives, it doesn't happen. Like yesterday, we were live for 2 hours, and TikTok didn't make me solve a puzzle to prove that I was live. So it's weird. Nice meeting you too, Dia. Do I process immigration? No, we own a law firm. So we have a head of immigration law, and then that team processes the permits. So I have in the past when we were a bit smaller, but now the law firm does all that. Jeez, that's wild. Oh yeah, they're good for that. Yeah, they're good for that. Actually, we had an old account too that happened to, just out of the blue for no apparent reason at all. It was pretty interesting. I can't even remember if they gave like a reason. It was really bizarre. And at the time, it was happening to a lot of people, and I guess it was happening to a lot of black people because there was this thing about like TikTok wasn't being fair to black creators or something like that. But yeah, I don't know what that's about. I'm trying to remember. I don't think there was a reason. I think it was bigger than this account too, which that also sucked. But we just like tried to log in one day and it was like, you know, permanently whatever. And the word they used wasn't like bananaed or so it was a different word. So you kind of thought like there was something that you could just turn off. And then you realize like that's the way they describe being like permanently deleted. So, but it was bizarre. I think the only thing that we could come up with back then was we didn't um we didn't have a social media manager back then. So like somebody just started the account. And I think it was a personal account. So like the music we had access to wasn't like on the business account, you can't just like do a video and have any old music. There's like business music. So you're limited in like the music you're allowed to use and all that. So that was the only thing that we could even think of. It's like, oh, there's a separation in these accounts, and maybe we were using music we weren't allowed to use or whatever. But they never gave us an actual reason. So do your company help with health insurance? Yeah. We personally use Britam. So all of our employees have Britam. We have Britam. I like it personally. A lot of our clients though have Oh man, the person who deals with that just left. I would have asked her, what do they have? They have a U.S. insurance company that exists here, and so they just keep it. I'm trying to remember who it was. Um, oh man, I can't even think of them. But it'll come back to me, I'm sure, during the conversation. So I'll just blurt it out randomly as we're talking. Yeah, it might be Aetna actually. It might be Aetna. Yeah. So Aetna's here. There's another one like UMPC or whatever. They're also here. So those ones you can actually just call them and be like, add Kenya to take, and they just change the premium based on that. Some people just like they keep US, but then obviously you're paying the same thing that you were paying in the United States for health insurance. So there's that. But there's people who go back and forth, like they have some really specific problem and like they only trust their back surgeon or their spine surgeon or whatever in the US. So they go back every 6 months. So I get it. I actually have a client now who's in the US doing that. And I think part of that is there's a specialist. I think they're 100% service connected, which they could use that here, but there's a specialist that they've been seeing, and it's like advanced surgery, like spinal surgeries that they've been through like two or three of them. So they just want to stick with that, surgeon or whatever. Which again, I get it. So there are some people who do that. Love to see you on my live stream. Yeah, well, I'll tell the social media manager so we can check your live stream out. But yeah, we essentially can assist with anything. Once you're here and you're on board, we've done boarding schools, right? There's actually a lot of Kenyans in the diaspora, right? So Kenyans living in the UK, Kenyans living in Canada, Kenyans living in America, whatever, that are not trying to have their kids involved in like a school shooting or whatever. And so they're open to sending their kids back to Kenya for school, and then so if they're not here with them, then they got to go to like an international boarding school, which is a really really high level of education to begin with. And so it's like sending your kids to a VIP private school, right? And so we're able to facilitate that process as well. Typically, we do like an international trust, and the trust then the parents can then throw money into the trust to cover school fees and all of that. But then at least the trust is able to act almost in a guardian capacity, right? So because the child is the beneficiary of the trust, so the trustee has a legal obligation to support the child. And so that way, if anything like any health crisis or anything like that happens, the trustee is there. And typically the trustee is a lawyer. Hey, Laura, how's it going? You all right? You're welcome, dear. Yeah, yeah, they appreciate it. There's also sometimes like squabbles between families for like inherited land. So the trust crushes all those squabbles. So typically the land will be owned by the trust in some way, shape, or form. Typically through a third company or a buffer company, you could call it, just so that if somebody fell and broke their leg on your land, they don't have access to everything that's in the trust bank account. So typically the trust would own a company and the company would own the land, whatever. But it just stops any kind of inheritance, anything, because that land wouldn't go to probate at all. Oh, we're good. We're good. We're good. My social media manager and my wife just went to Malindi to do some business up there. So I'm here. My son is in there with the governess doing whatever they're doing. So yeah. Love to travel across the country one day, even only East Africa. Yeah, East Africa is pretty open. Like if you're an East African citizen, you could typically go to all the countries without a visa. How's your grandbaby, Laura? Uh, it is 7:25 a.m. Have you ever reload? So our lawyers are Kenyan lawyers, right? So all of our onboarding happens in Kenya. Now, once people are onboarded, there's a standard that's becoming like an international standard. It's called KYC. And so once somebody has onboarded with us, if they're doing something somewhere else, that's when we can represent them there because we have the KYC criteria down. So, like for example, we had people on board with us and then set up a pharmaceutical company in Sierra Leone. We've had people on board with us and then get set up in the Seychelles, right? But they have to onboard with us in Kenya first. So typically those people are like our passport portfolio people, right? Which are generational wealth clients. So they get into, generational wealth stuff and then they end up seeking passports in other countries. So we can assist in that and facilitate those things because they've already onboarded with us in Kenya. It's 7:25 a.m. here. Yeah, I live in Diani. Yeah, I live in Kenya permanently. She is one going on 15. Aw. Get out of here. That's hilarious. Nothing wrong with that. I bet she's precious. I haven't seen her in a while. I have to look for a picture or a video on your profile or something. My guy's running around too. Yeah, dear. I live in Kenya. I'm almost Kenyan. I'll be Kenyan probably by March of next year. I bet that's a lot of fun. He does the same thing. I don't have any videos of it though, but he doesn't care whose shoes it is. He'll just try to wear bigger shoes. No, you don't have to renounce no U.S. citizenship. This is Kenya. That's some nonsense you have to do in like Tanzania, which doesn't even make any sense. Like we have clients that do passport portfolios and they'll sacrifice a member of their family to renounce citizenship and gain citizenship in Singapore because the benefits of doing that are through the roof, right? So it makes sense to like make sure that you have a Singaporean member of your family and then your family office and you're making money in your investments and the blah 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 blah. All of that's being run through Singapore. That makes sense. There's no reason whatsoever to renounce anything to be Tanzanian. They don't offer you anything in exchange for that renouncing. So that makes no sense at all, right? So I don't even know the folks that moved to Tanzania. I don't even know what they're thinking. But in Kenya, they have dual citizenship. So yeah, I didn't renounce anything. I applied for additional citizenship, but you need to qualify. So the two ways you qualify is either you have an ordinary residency permit for 7 years, or you've been married to a Kenyan for 7 years. One of the, either or. And then you apply for citizenship by, I think they call it citizenship by registration, and then that's it. You go you go through a couple interviews and all of that stuff, and as long as you qualify, you're good. So that's what happens to most of our clients at the end of the 7 years. Now, if they don't if they don't choose a path that leads to citizenship, then typically they get permanent residence. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it is a long time. Oh, you leave? Yes, I do, Dia. Yep. Sure. Yeah, you can buy and build anywhere. Are you saying like with our promo? No, because the promo, the land is already acquired. So if you're talking about like with the promo offer that we're doing, that's only by the beach. But just our regular service, we build anywhere in Nairobi or anywhere in Kenya. Sorry, we typically don't build in Nairobi because there's not a whole lot of places to build in Nairobi. It's like trying to find a place to build a house in New York City. But yeah, we'll build wherever. Yeah, you can get a 100 by 100 plot. Anything you can afford, you can absolutely get out here. The prices will change based on where you are, what you're getting, and all of that stuff. But yeah, you can definitely get whatever you want. If you have a if you have a professional team, then you can definitely get like whatever you want. But if not, then there's restrictions on like freehold land versus leasehold land. Da, 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 da. But if you have a full on legal team, you can convert things that are outside. Like if it's like freehold and you want it, if you have a good legal team, they can convert it from a freehold to a leasehold. But like a realtor typically can't do that, and you definitely can't do it on your own. So it's like a 6 month full on legal process to do that because the taxes change. When it's freehold, the taxes are paid to the county. When it's leasehold, the taxes are paid to the central government. So it's like taking, from an American point of view, it would be like taking land away from the state and giving it to the federal government. So it's a process. Oh no. So Eddie Boy asked yesterday, you mentioned a new client who uses 401k from Costco for the bond laddering. Did he get the loan from his 401k or pair use alone? No, or loan only. No, 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 no. So for him, what he was able to do, he's not 59 and a half yet, but he has a Roth. So he was actually able to take out his contributions like with no penalty and no none of that. So he didn't even have to do that. He just pulled his contributions, left the earnings in, but by pulling out the contributions, he had enough. So if it's a Roth, you can always pull out your contributions, no penalty. because they've already, I suppose they've already been taxed is the mindset, right? If it's not, then it's pre-tax, right? So when you pull it out, there's a penalty because you haven't paid tax on the money. But the thing that you haven't paid tax on is the gains inside, that account. So you can pull out the contributions, no problem. So how do you get the money? Can you, I'm assuming that's used, Laura. Can you use a home loan, or how does that work? How do you get the money for like the relocation, you mean? Okay, bye. I hope to see you again. Yep, see you again, Dia. Have a good one. For relocation, there's plenty of ways. There's so many ways. Our clients even come up with ways sometimes that we've never heard of, which happened, this week actually. But there's so many ways. You can, pull from your 401k. You can pull from an IRA. You can pull, your contributions from a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA. You can get a HEI, which is a home equity investment, where they give you a bunch of money based on the equity in your house, that you don't have to pay any payments on for the first 10 years, right? You can get a HELOC. There are folks that get like business loans, like if they're bringing their business over here, they'll get like business loans. There are folks that get personal loans. There are folks that just have it in the bank and they just pull it out the bank and pay. So there's so many different ways that people pay us. And I'm sure I even missed 10 of them, but there's a ton of ways to finance it. Essentially, anyone who really wants to do it has never been like, oh, I couldn't get the money up, man. It just didn't work out. Like anyone who like legit wanted to do it, like we've had McDonald workers and all, and all that do it. So like anyone who legit wanted to do it found the money, and that was the end of that. There's a bunch of like Americans that even ended up doing like bankruptcies afterwards, which is fine. That's what it's there for. But then they were still over here. All their stuff over here was secure. So they still had a great life over here, and their credit score don't follow them over here. So they were good. But yeah, there's tons of ways to do it. No, that's not true. I think you're thinking of Rwanda. You had asked about Rwanda earlier. You might still be thinking of Rwanda, Henrock. Here, citizens get freehold, foreigners get leasehold, but it's not a lease. That's how a lot of people get scammed, right? So, and because we have the law firm, we end up, getting a lot of those cases. And sometimes there's really nothing you can do because you sign paperwork that you should have had a professional look over, and it is what it is at this point. But leasehold does not mean lease. But because we don't have anything equivalent to leasehold in the United States, we think because the word lease is in there that it's just a lease because we have leases. It's not. If it's a lease, you don't own it. Leasehold, you own it, right? You just own it for the term of 99 years and you get an automatic renewal, right? So a leasehold, you fully own it. Nobody else has any rights to that property but you. But what'll end up happening is people will think they know what they're talking about because they feel secure that they know what the word lease means, and they'll come over here and sign a lease with somebody where they still own the property. You just basically paid them 99 years rent in advance, and you signed a lease with them. And so if they get into an auto accident and they lose a lawsuit, it's their asset. You've signed a lease. You do not own it. You know what I mean? So there can be a lien against that property and all that stuff while you're living in there, because you didn't have a professional. But leasehold is a legal interest. in something. So it's whether your interest is leasehold legal interest or freehold legal interest. It's not, a document. So it's just the interest that you have in a property. So and it doesn't start when you buy it. So if you buy a leasehold property, it might have a 99-year leasehold on it, but there might only be 40 years left. Right? So, it doesn't start the day that you buy the property. It starts the day that the title was issued for the property. So it's a completely different thing. So most people who are like, "Oh yeah, I'm buying a property and the lease starts today," that's probably an actual lease. It's probably not leasehold, and so you're probably, essentially just renting something from somebody. And then when you pass, they can come back in, and there might even be a clause. We've even had leases where there was a clause in the lease that if the two lessers die, the lease is considered to be fulfilled. So like you can't even pass it on to your kids and be like, well, I've leased this for 99 years. If you die in 20 years, they just get their property back. So, and that just comes from ignorance of local law, but an understanding of what words mean where you come from and just an assumption that they mean the same thing. They filed bankruptcy. That's what bankruptcy's for. I don't know what it is about black people. We seem to have a problem with all these things. Donald Trump that did 6 Chapter 11 bankruptcies. He did 6 corporate bankruptcies, no personal bankruptcies. But as an American, one of the benefits to being an American is you get a second chance. You get to start over. And that's why bankruptcy courts and bankruptcy law exists, right? And so you can take a chance at anything. We're just risk averse as a people, so we don't take chances in life. But you can take a chance at anything as an American, and if it doesn't work out, file bankruptcy. It's literally what it's there for. Yeah, man. We're here, Eddie. Yeah. Everything is everything is pretty much tempered like by legitimacy. You know what I mean? Like if you don't take a legitimate shot at something, then that's where you run into to issues. You know what I mean? Like people will try to like you can't. I mean, you can, but it's not going to work out the way you plan it. But you can't like go like I don't know, go get a new credit card and pay for relocation on the new credit card, and then before the first payment is done, file bank. Like that doesn't work. Like it has to be a legitimate, earnest attempt at something. Typically, you can't include debt that's younger than 6 months into a bankruptcy, but you want to talk to your local bankruptcy attorney about that, with because there might be local caveats as well, like there might be state caveats as well. So we don't handle U.S. bankruptcies, so that's always handled by the client's local bankruptcy attorney and all of that stuff. But typically, we've never seen anyone where you can file it in sooner than 6 months after acquiring the debt, right? So there needs to be like a almost like a good faith attempt at doing whatever, which most people that's what they want to do. Most people aren't trying to like run a damn scam, right? But once that attempt fails, then you gotta move forward. You gotta fail forward, and so that's exactly what bankruptcy courts for. So we have a ton of clients that have done that. Some on the corporate side, like some they'll come over with the investor permits. They'll attempt the business and they'll try to do business and all that, and then they won't have enough cash flow to cover the debt. You know, a year in or something like that, and then they'll have to file. Typically a Chapter 11, but what they file and how they file it and all that's between them and their bankruptcy attorney. Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like we definitely, there have definitely been clients that, have done multiple, just like Trump. Trump did what, six Chapter 11s. There's definitely been people who like they'll open a company. They still have their investor permit. Like what you file in the United States doesn't affect your status here. So they still have an investor permit. They try a business, the business doesn't work. They that business is owned by another business that's in the United States. And so the business in the United States files bankruptcy because the loans they took for the business were through the parent company, right? And so that it files bankruptcy, discharges that debt, whatever. Then they start another business, right? They do another business, and if that doesn't work out, and file bankruptcy. Eventually, they typically stumble onto something that works. But that's how entrepreneurship really works. That's why in our community, there's very few solid, real companies that aren't solopreneurs that have employees and all of that because we're not trying to fail forward. We're failure adverse and we're risk averse. So we don't take as a community individual. There are exceptions, but the exception proves the rule. It doesn't disprove it. So what ends up happening is people don't take enough risks. They don't build big enough. They're averse to failure. They don't know what they're going to do if they fail. They don't want to. They feel some kind of shame about like bankruptcy proceedings and stuff like that. The case is, and it holds back the culture as a whole of growing. Within the system and within business and within generational wealth. So it's unfortunate, but yeah. Yeah. It's a culture thing. We really don't think of it that often, and it's interesting for us particularly because we're a U.S. company, right? So we own like shares in Kenyan companies, and we have vendors in Kenya that do whatever they do. But we're a U.S. company, right? And so as a U.S. company, like you can't discriminate, anything like that, right? So we have clients that come through from all walks of life, and it's really really interesting to see what other people from other ethnic groups how they approach this when they come to us for like a relocation versus like how our people approach it. Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, we're just super risk averse. It's sad because it's really truly greater risk, greater reward. You know what I mean? And of course, it's risk, so it means you could fail. But if you're not taking risks, you can never win. So it's one of those things where you're just stuck. Yeah, we had this kid that was working through our affiliate program, and he was using the affiliate program to pay his way through Harvard. And he, I'm assuming he was Chinese based on his name and all of that. And so, but he only sent like Chinese clients, and the way they approached the whole thing, like deals with them were done in like a week. You know what I mean? When I'm dealing with someone from my community, we're going back and forth for months before they pull the trigger. There's people who've been talking about they're going to work with me, going to work with me, going to work with me for years. like they pop up like I'm working on it. I'm getting it together for literally for years, right? Where like the Chinese come in, they're like, all right, we're going to take this risk. We're going to go to the bank. We're going to get this. If it doesn't work, we're going to file bankruptcy. Who cares? We don't live in America anymore. We don't care about our credit score. Like, let's go. And in a week, they're done, ready to rock. So it's definitely interesting to see how the different groups do things differently. And it's not like I said, there's exceptions to everything. I've had let me think. There's somebody from where is she from? I want to say she's from California. I have a single mom from California that just onboarded, and she moved, you know, at Chinese speed. It was like, all right, let's go. What are we doing? How are we doing it? All right, let me go talk to the bank. All right, sending a wire. We're going. Let's go. You know, and she was on it. You know, and then there's another. She's not a single mom. She has a whole family, but it's a complicated case. But same kind of thing with her, right? So, you know, there's exceptions. Just as a community, we're pretty risk averse, and we're typically individually conservative. We might politically align ourselves with whatever, but we're typically individually conservative. So both of those things kind of work against us in business. Have an affiliate program? Yeah, we it's not even really an affiliate program so much as a referral program actually. But we typically do a 6% referral. So it seems like a real estate agent would get on like building a house, right? So if you refer somebody to us and they build a house, then you know, like that kid was getting like 13,000 per referral, right? So he was making like 130,000 a year. Because he wasn't sending a referral every month, but he was definitely sending about 10 a year. So that's how he paid his way through Harvard. He's a maxillofacial surgeon now. So he doesn't, you know, really send people anymore. He makes like a $500,000 a year as an oral surgeon. So he's good now. But getting through college, you know, and he just randomly found our website and like signed up, and we thought it was actually because you'll get like these like I don't even know what they are. I assume there's some kind of scam they're trying to run, but they never like actually scam. So I guess they sign up looking to see if they can gain access to like hack your site. So we get tons of stuff from like Russia and like Croatia and you know Asia and all of that. So when you get you know an Asian name pop up as like oh somebody has signed up for your you know your affiliate program, you're like oh okay another nonsense like sign up type of situation. So he signed up. And we were just kind of like whatever. And then like within a month somebody showed up like with from his link and we're like oh okay, and then the next month somebody else showed up, and then by then that first one had already processed to us and we're like sending a check out to him. We're like damn this kid's for real you know. And so for all the years that he was going through his medical school, you know he sent a ton of folks through his affiliate link. So yeah, he made six figures a year. But it was interesting because we had no in with the you know Asian community before him, so it was just interesting to see the difference in how they worked. Same thing with like the Jewish community when they show up, they already know what they want. So they show up, they already have a breakdown of exactly what's going on. We've had them send the wire before the meeting, like a wire just show up in our account. And we'd be like, what in the hell? Where did this money come from? And so we typically quarantine it because we're like, all right, we need to figure out what's going on with this before anything happens. So we like push it off into a quarantine account or whatever. And then we have the meeting, and like in the beginning of the meeting, oh, did you get the wire? I'm like, what? What do you mean? You know, so it's really interesting how different groups of people approach working with specialists. We haven't dealt too much with them, um, but we did a lot of work with China. And the Chinese are typically doing investor permits. You know, like we set up a fish farm for one of them. One of them did a shoe manufacturing plant. They're doing all the things I wish my community would do because really manufacturing is where it's at. And if we can control our own supply chain and manufacture the t-shirts and the purses and the belts and the shoes and all the stuff I like to buy, it would elevate the community significantly. But we're not really there yet, unfortunately. I wish more of us would be doing the generational wealth stuff, quite frankly. Because that's the stuff that has the longest impact. But we're not quite there yet, it seems. It's unfortunate, but what's up, Toxic? Good to see you, man. What's new with you? I haven't seen you for a while, actually. What's new with you? All is well? Are you still in Jamaica? Oh, nice. Oh, all right. Well, yeah, no, I bet it is. I'm actually starting a new workout regimen tomorrow. I'm like, I need to do more. I need to do more so I can do more. So I have a whole regiment, planned out. And so I'm gonna have to dedicate to a new workout regimen. I'm gonna drop 20 pounds and try to increase my fitness. Mm, man. Oh, so you just finished. So you'll be home in 30 minutes. Yeah, nah, I'm with you 100%. I used to like do stuff at the construction site every now and then. I don't do that anymore at all. I do that. I'm in an ice bath. It's ridiculous. Uh-oh. I don't know who just made a comment. Some comments in this live were filtered to protect the community experience. I don't know. I don't know who just threw up a crazy comment, but TikTok blocked it. I wanted to start selling journals. Do you have printing companies over there? Sure. Sure. You can do more than that, though. You can actually make the paper. Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, you can do so much over here for so little. Like your startup can be so little. Typically, people who put the 100,000 up, they don't need that to start their business, right? So like there's a client that's about to get into like the tea and coffee import export business. He can start that entire business for $40,000. Like the whole thing, employees, all right. Um, so creating the paper mill and turning the wood pulp or hemp pulp at this point, like industrial hemp, which would be way better for the environment, into actual paper, you could do that. You know what I mean? So you don't have to just have a printer that's printing on paper that comes from who knows where. You can create an entire supply chain that supports people that look like. So I just did a copyright on the type of journal. It's a unique shape. Are you sure you did a copyright? Because if you did a copyright, you did the wrong thing. And whoever told you to go do a copyright gave you the bad information. If the journal's a unique shape, yeah, if the journal's a unique shape, copyright protects works of art. So you can copyright music. You can copyright the stuff you write in the book. You can copyright a sound. You can copyright a photograph, right? So that's what copyright does. If you're saying the physical journal, the shape of the journal is unique, then you're probably actually talking about a patent. Now, since you didn't invent a journal, right, you would be talking about a specific type of patent for like the utility. of that shape, right? So, you know, if you, I don't even know who would have given you a copyright on the shape of a journal. So yeah, I don't know. Look at, have you like applied for the copyright and not heard back from them yet? Because they might be confused. But you're probably looking at some kind of like utility patent or something like that. Or there's a patent that you can get for improving a like an existing, invention, or improving an existing design. The issue is that you might get the copyright depending on what you submitted, right? So like I can well, I can't, I'm not an architect, but we have an architecture firm. So I can take an architectural design from my architect and I could submit that for copyright. But what they would be copywriting is the work of art, right? So if you sent them a picture of the journal in the funky shape, they might be like, "Oh, we're copywriting this work of art," right? But like the production of that journal in that shape would not be protected by copyright. I don't even, unless you use the shape as your logo, I don't even see a way that it would be protected by trademark. That sounds like a patent to me. But speak to an IP professional, speak to your IP lawyer, and see what they have to say about it. But just be careful, Laura. Professionals, professionals, professionals. Google is not your friend. Yeah. Um, yeah. But copyrights definitely. I mean, I would go ahead and get the definition of copyright, I would, I would, because you might get that copyright, but they're gonna think, like, I don't know what you submitted, so I don't know. But if you submitted like a design, like a drawing of this unique shape that you got, they're gonna think that drawing is what you're copywriting, because copywriting is essentially for art, and it's automatic. So like when you take a picture of something based on the convention, the what is it, the Paris Convention, you have the copyright immediately, right? But you can't sue for damages unless you register the copyright. You can sue, but you can't get any money. You can't when you sue unless you register the copyright. That's what the registration of the copyright is for. But copyrights are typically automatic. Like you automatically get the copyright as soon as you bring the thing into existence. So as soon as you take the picture, it's copywritten by the photographer, no matter who's in the picture. So anybody can take a picture of you. They own the copyright of your picture because they took the picture immediately, right? So that's why, like when you get like logo work done and stuff like that, the person that you hire to do it, you need to have in the service agreement that you own all the IP. So you own the copyright, you own the trademark, especially if it's like a logo and you're going to trademark it. You own the trademark, you own the copyright. That needs to be in writing, right? And then you could go and register those things if you need to. But yeah, I would definitely, you can get a consultation with an IP person and about it. Yeah. And the other thing is like they trademarks and copyrights and patents only IP stands for intellectual property. That's the kind of lawyer that you're going to want to talk to about this. But they only kind of hold weight in the country where they were filed. Now, you can get a patent and file it under the Paris Convention, right? So it's still not an international patent, but that filing shows that there's like an intention for it to be international. So then what you do is every country where you want it recognized, there's a process. Now there's a convention process, so it's cheaper for all the countries that are part of the convention. Kenya is part of the convention. So if you have it filed that way, you can go to any of those countries and say, look, I have this patent. I started it in the United States. I patented it under the convention. So I'm going to utilize it in your country as well. And so there's a reduced filing fee, but you got to pay again. And you get the patent in all the different countries that you want to do the thing, as long as those countries are part of the convention. But it only really matters in the country where you started it. So you'll see, like, there's videos, I think there's videos on this account actually on TikTok, where there are companies here that are like blatant copies of American companies, sometimes down to the name, right? And the reason why they could do that is because they own the trademark for that name here. They own the trademark for that logo here. And that can even be challenged, even though the trademark isn't owned here. There is case law, for people to challenge it. But time matters most, and all IP stuff, it's who was first, and time matters most, and sometimes filing matters most. So sometimes who filed it first, depending on which jurisdiction you're operating under, matters more than who made it first. But a lot of jurisdictions, like, even if someone did file it first, if there's clear and convincing evidence that the other person made it first, then there's that. And then there's all kinds of caveats. Like, if you use your work computer to make something at home on your home time when you're not working, but you use the work computer, they own the IP. So if they figure out that you used your work laptop to invent that thing, it's their invention. So stuff like that. There's little caveats, but you got to speak to an IP professional about that. I don't think you should have to necessarily pay for it. You know what I mean? So I think you could probably get a free consultation with an IP attorney, or like go to a law school and ask if you can do something with the law students, because the law students are going to be overseen by the professor who's typically an attorney already, and go through that. But I don't think you should necessarily have to pay for just which document should I file for this. But I think they're going to tell you that the copyright doesn't make sense in that particular situation. Oh, you meant patent. Yeah, no, that makes all the sense in the world. Yeah, if you file a patent, then yes, that's exactly what you should have done. Not a copyright. Yeah, all right. So if you just said the wrong word, then yeah, that makes sense to me. In my opinion, you did the right thing. Still, probably, you can talk to an IP professional about it to get a legitimate legal opinion. But if I were you, that's what I would have registered. I would have registered a patent. Yeah, no, that's cool. I can't wait to see the I can't wait to see the design. Sometimes patents take a while, you know what I mean? I wouldn't let that stop you from your journey. Once you register it, you're like patent pending anyway, so like you're good to go. The registration is enough. So if you already registered it, that at least proves that you're the first one to utilize, the shape or the new thing. You just want to make sure that that you're keeping your eye on office actions, right? So make sure that the USTPO is in your email address book, and that when they send you an office action, which is just an email asking for something, make sure that you answer it on time, because that's the number one cause of people getting denied is that they'll send an email out and ask like, oh, well, what about this? Or you need to correct that. Sometimes they'll even tell you just what you need to do, right? So like you'll do a trademark and they'll be like, all right, you need to, say in the trademark description that you're not claiming this, that, and the third, right? So like if you did a trademark and in your logo was like, I don't know, the shape of Africa, they would make you clarify like you're not trying to trademark the shape of Africa, are you? You know what I mean? And so that you have to put that in the disclaimer, like, I lay no claim to the the continental outline shape of Africa. It's this other stuff around, the symbol of Africa that I'm laying claim to, right? So sometimes they'll just tell you what to do, but if you don't answer quickly enough, then they'll just deny you. And then it's way harder. Like if you come back with something that's been denied and try to process it again, then you got to kind of have to prove why the last rejection was incorrect and go from there. Oop. All right. I got to hit the head. I will be right back. All right. I am apologies. This is the water intake. That's 1.5 liters. I'm just not sure if I should go through all that work of getting a patent for just the journal shape. I mean, it's really, really, really up to you. It truly is. Yes, there's a chance that somebody can sweep in. Yeah, yeah, I know that's right. There's a chance that somebody can swoop in and you know, steal the idea. Typically, for me, if it's me and I'm making the analysis as to whether or not I want to spend the money for a patent, number one, I typically am looking at how unique the thing is, right? And what level of invention is surrounding it, right? So if I've created a new engine or something, right, that I don't know, runs on grass or something like that, I'm getting a patent. You know what I mean? Like that's, a whole different thing. If, however, it's like like I created like a new type of bench that's, I don't know, shaped like a Mobius, strip or something like that. I probably would not get a patent for that. Maybe I would make the bench and sell it and see if the market responds to it or whatever. But it would take me quite a long time before I would patent something like that. right? So I think the if you go look up the inventor of Spanx, she has a lot to say about patents because she had obviously she patented Spanx, but she never defended the patent, right? So there was a bunch of people that copied Spanx, and she just like let them do it. They never had the same quality as her. They never had the right marketing as her. You know, they all of those places are all out of business now. It didn't work for them. It only worked for her because nobody could be her, right? So one of the biggest things is to like focus on what you do and keep that focus straight, because as soon as you start playing someone else's game, you lose immediately because you can't be them, right? So with something like this, I don't know if I would do it. You know what I mean? Because someone else can obviously create another shape and whatever. And there typically has to be some kind of utility. Like the shape has to like allow it to do something that like another journal wouldn't be able to do. Right? So like I've seen like pop-up journals where like you can open it and there's something about the mechanism of it that like it actually opens up, and then you can stick things to the journal or whatever and like close it, whatever. So there's utility to the shape. And it's like they've looked for utility patents for stuff like that. But yeah, I the protections I tend to do last because you're what matters, right? Like the name doesn't. For example, Twitter became X. Now, people had an issue with the person who bought Twitter and turned it into X. That's a separate thing. How many people stopped using Twitter because Twitter became X? Not because of who bought it, because the name changed to X. No one. No one was like, oh, it's X now. It's not Twitter. The marketing. Oh my God, the marketing has been destroyed. I'm not using it anymore. That never has happened, right? Ever in life. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if I build something and I didn't trademark the logo and somebody comes and steals the logo, who cares? I'll change that logo and I'll still, like, I know it works now, right? The confidence that I now have in what I'm doing is through the roof because it's proven. The concept is proven. So I can change the name anytime I want. That's called rebranding. Like people who don't even lose their trademarks, and haven't been challenged in court or anything like that, rebrand all the time, right? So the rebranding isn't going to hurt you. You'll be able to do that. So I just don't. I feel like, especially like during the pandemic and stuff, people were bringing up a lot of kind of nonsense to make a quick buck. And so it was like, oh, you can't open a business unless you get your trademark. You can't do this unless you get your copyright. You don't know what you're doing. See, you don't know what you're doing. And people were like playing on that to make like a quick buck, online. And so a lot of people, I heard Pinky Cole once say that they trademarked everything in their. That doesn't even make sense. Like they trademarked everything in their. Google doesn't trademark everything in their business. You know what I mean? Like that's a money grab. And she like said it with her whole chest, like she did the right thing. And then who lost their company? After you can like YouTube Google that, like you can Google that. You'll come up with her being like, I trademarked everything. And 6 months later, who lost their company? Right. So what did all that trademarking do for you? Right. So it's one of these things where I think we went through this phase of like people being like, see, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what a trademark is. See, so you're not a real business person. And like that became a way to kind of do business, irresponsible business. And so people were paying for all of these things that they didn't need. They hadn't even proven their business yet, but they had 30 trademarks. You know what I mean? And so folks, unfortunately, that's permeated the culture where folks are like, I need to get this, I need to get that, I need to get the other, where they don't necessarily need any of that yet. I remember the first, very, very, very first business I got into, I didn't even like register it. Like I operated as a sole proprietor because initially there was virtually no liability. So why would I need limited liability protection for something that has no liability? I don't even have a client yet. Who has standing to sue me, right? Like, no one, because I haven't done any service to anyone yet. So it's one of those things where folks that maybe have never actually been in business are are selling things as business advice, and it's just a sale. There's no real value or benefit to it, unfortunately. But it happens a lot, especially now. The internet has really magnified that Because back in the day, you might have needed like a shop in the mall or something, or a shop in a strip mall, or an office somewhere to be in business. You're not finna pay all that money to open up a brick and mortar location to lie to people. So it used to be that most people who were doing business were doing something that was fairly legitimate. But with the internet, there's so many people who are asking ChatGPT what business to run and then doing that and charging people, and they don't know nothing. And every time somebody asks them something, they ask ChatGPT, and ChatGPT lie. And then they go back with that lie, and put themselves in a bad, position. So unfortunately, the cons of the internet outweigh the pros personally. I felt like that for years. The cons of the internet to me outweigh the pros for sure. At least the way that we've crafted the internet. Because the way that we've crafted the internet, it's all about like time, and consistency, right? So right away, you have a disconnect from reality, right? Because like I have to get up before my workday and do these lives, and to be consistent in the blah 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 blah, right? So I'm up 5:30 in the morning every morning doing this stuff before the actual workday begins, right? Because if you're actually doing the work, you don't have time to go live. Anyone who is live 12 hours a day talking about they're doing multi-million dollar deals, they're lying. You don't have time to do that if you're actually doing the work, right? And the people you hire, they're not you. So they don't have the expertise necessary to answer the questions that you can answer and to break down the things that you can break down if you're a specialist in your field, so that you can just hire somebody to do it for you. So that becomes the disconnect. So all of the people who have the time to be doing 6 and 7 and 8 hour lives are full of shit, and people aren't making that connection. So the cons of the way that we've set up the internet is the loudest person talking the longest, most consistently gets all the reach and gets all the followers, gets all the stuff. But that person obviously isn't doing the work, because if they were doing the work, they don't have 6 hours a day to sit on lives, right? So obviously the lives are the work, right? So that becomes the issue, because people can't see through it because they don't have the business experience to understand, like, nah, there's no way. If you're building a new there's no way that you can sit on live like this, and do this internet thing the way you're doing it, right? So the folks who are doing it, you'll notice they're very rarely talking directly into the social media. Typically, they hire somebody to follow them around, and you're just seeing clips of their day. That's typically the way that they do it. First person that I knew personally to do that was actually Kevin Hart, right? And he just had somebody that he paid to follow him around all day and take video and take clips. And so that's how he did. You'll see the same thing from like the Hermosis, you know what I mean? Like Alex and Layla Hermosi, they do the same thing. Very rarely are they having a live just for the sake of social. They might be on an interview and they clip up that interview and put it out there or whatever, but very rarely are they spending a super significant amount of time just speaking directly on a live. They don't have time for that, right? My hourly rate's like $500 an hour, right? I spend 2 hours every day, some days 3, talking to you guys on live. I'm at 2 hours and 3 minutes right now. That's $1,000 worth of my time, right? So folks who are out here doing it, they do not have time to be dropping 8 hours on a live, shouting at people, spreading good information. So the people who are doing that are suspect. Unfortunately, though, folks who have never been in business don't see that. Like they don't recognize that. And so that's where all the bad advice comes from. And the worst one was Clubhouse, because you couldn't even see the person. There's a little bit of accountability that sets in when you can look the person in the eye, you know who they are, and when they screw up, you can kind of like go after them and show the videos and all of that stuff. All right, fine. But Clubhouse was pure ear hustling. You couldn't see the person, you know what they look like. All you got was a voice. And people went crazy on that thing, giving out the worst advice in the world. And so, so for me, the cons of the internet, as far as the way information moves, have outweighed the pros of the internet up until this point. We'll see what happens in the future, but up until this point, that's the way I feel about it. That's my opinion on the matter. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Laura. You know, it's definitely a you don't know what you don't know situation. Typically, what used to happen was you got the level of professional you could afford, right? The hack to getting a professional you couldn't afford was to share equity with them, right? Which is kind of one of the ways that you kind of get rid of bullshitters, right? Because there's always somebody like, oh, I'm going to open a business. It's the next big thing. Everybody, it's worth millions. It's the greatest idea in the world. Da, 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 da. Typically, when people are talking about ideas instead of deployment, they're typically new entrepreneurs. That's number one, right? The deployment is going to matter way more than the idea any day of the week. That's why the pet rock sold 1 million, you know, more than 1 million, and life saving. There was a vest that used to perform CPR, didn't, for babies. You know what I mean? Like, you put this vest around a baby, and it'll do CPR and bring your baby back to life. Didn't do as well in sales as the stupid little pet rock, because your delivery and your logistics matter way more than your product, right? That any entrepreneur who's been doing it for a while understands that, right? So when you hear somebody talk about how great their idea is, that's a automatic giveaway. Up, you're a brand new business owner. You think the idea is what sells, and it's not, right? So those kinds of things happen, and it's the pathway. My first was my idea. It was so great, and millions of dollars, and we'll all be billionaires. Like that, okay, that's fine. We all go through that stage, right? But it used to be that whatever level of professional you could hire was essentially the level of advice you would get, and then you would go through the process and whatever. For folks who can really do solid research and are not looking for an echo chamber, which is what most folks are looking for, you can get really solid advice online. But it's not going to be just a quick Google search, right? Typically, you need a specialized search. So, like, for example, with Google, there's something that's scholar.google.com, right? Which is a scholarly search where you actually get facts, not feelings. You don't get somebody's blog post or somebody's, vlog or some other such nonsense, where they're just, vomiting whatever, and have absolutely nothing to back it up, no experience, no credentials, nothing. You get peer-reviewed fact when you do that search. Most people don't even know that search exists. Right now, you got the peer-reviewed facts. You're going to have to, number one, be able to interpret the data, and you're going to have to read through an actual, scientific study that's going to break down, how does market research work? How do you figure out what your TAM is? How do you figure out what your SAM is? How do you figure out what your SOM is? All of these technical things that are going to be necessary, for you to move forward in business. You got to do the work. Now it's like you're going to school. It's like you're going to college. You got to sit down and do 8 hours of study and figure it out. So another thing that kind of this generation of the internet has created is this TikTok mind. We just swipe, 30 seconds swipe, 30 seconds swipe. Yep. Oh yeah, I'm a specialist. I just listened to 30 seconds on TikTok about narcissism. Now I'm a psychologist, swipe. So it's really hard for a lot of people to sit down and actually do real research for 8 hours, and sacrifice that much time to figure something out. But that's what it takes. You know what I mean? If you're going to do your own due diligence, that's what it takes. And all of that reading and all of that research will still not prepare you for the real deal, right? It'll prepare the theory of what's supposed to happen. It'll give you a greater insight and understanding into what the legitimacy looks like. But only experience is going to prepare you for the real deal, even after all that. That's why, when it's lives on the line, it's not academic. You don't go to boot camp and sit in a class, even if you're Air Force. You don't go to boot camp and sit in a class and get all academics. That's part of it, but physical experience is the other part, right? You have to go through and do the thing and mess up and and learn from your mistakes and do it again and do it again and become confident in your ability to actually perform. And that's part of it. That's probably the bigger part of it, than the academic part. So we see that in everything, where it really, really matters. You can't just go to school and then be a doctor. No, you have to go and do, 4 years of residency. You have to physically do it. After 12 years, 10 years of academics, you still have to go do a physical residency in the things that matter, right? And the things where lives are on the line. We all know that that's the truth. So, in the things where, we can collectively pretend that that's not true in order to make a buck, that's where people are talking about, oh, if you say you're an expert, you're an expert, manifest it. You can manifest it. Yeah, okay, go manifest a brain surgery. Let's see how well that works out for you, right? So we know what's real, we know what's right, but the internet has given us a space where we can pretend, that these fake things are just as legitimate as real things. And then people with no experience at all just lead people astray. And it's sad. So again, for me, it's not been the internet has not been a net positive, at least not yet. Maybe in a decade or two, it'll make up for all the nonsense it's caused. But right now, it's really made things worse from a knowledge standpoint, in my opinion. That's just purely my opinion. But in my opinion, it hasn't been a net positive. Typically professionals, there's one or two ways that they, can essentially prove that they're professionals. They're either part of a professional organization, all right, which is the easiest way to do it, I suppose. They're either part of a professional organization. So if they're a lawyer, you can check and see that they've passed the bar, right? And they're a licensed member of the whatever state bar, or the law society. Like here in Kenya, they're part of the Law Society of Kenya and blah, 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 right? So professional organizations, and then if they're the type of professional that doesn't have a professional organization, then it's typically social proof, right? So then you can see the things that they have done and go from there and make a decision. But anyone who shies away from social proof, or professional organizations that claims to be a professional in that field is typically a red flag. No problem, Laura. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Yeah, a lot of people have never heard of that. Yep, yep. Scholar.google.com, right? Then you won't get lied to. Google is just going to show you whatever is most popular. And remember, Google made Google search worse to make more money. They've admitted that, right? So when you Google something, you're not supposed to get the right answer the first time you Google it, because they want to show you more ads, right? So that's a fact. So Google was super, super good when it came out, because everybody who was working on it was like, yeah, we're supposed to get answers for people. And then Google was like, we're not showing people enough ads, so make sure they don't get the right answer the first time and they have to search again, right? So by design, Google is not giving you the right answer. And that's something that like they've admitted to. So scholar.google.com if you're going to choose to be Googling stuff, and then sit there and do the research. Yeah, I mean, well, technically, based on business science, I'm actually doing the wrong thing, right? Because I wake up so that I can come on here and do my social media marketing, and I do it every day consistently. The consistency is good, right? But based on business science, you can only make so many good decisions in a day. That's why you see like your top performing people do odd things like buy 100 of the same sweater, so that they don't have to make a decision on what to wear that day, right? Like that's what they're doing. They're decision hacking their life, right? So that they only have to make decisions when they count. Because from sleep to sleep, there are a limited amount of good decisions that your brain can make, and that's a scientific fact, right? So me sitting here answering questions, making decisions before I start work, I'm actually giving up a certain percentage of the good decisions that I can make today before I start making decisions on my actual business, right? So when you're dealing with, fact over fiction, you can definitely hack, the way that you approach things to make sure that you're in the best possible position to succeed. But when you're just listening to other people's, you know, opinion, and especially when the opinion is utterly ridiculous, like, oh, just go manifest it. I mean, you're not going to get very far with that. So just do the research. Do the research, know the facts, understand the science, and move forward from there. Unfortunately, this internet has moved us away from that. All right. I have been here for 2 hours and 16 minutes. Any other questions today? Or do I get my Sunday started? It is Sunday, so I'm not working. So sometimes I will stay a little bit longer on these weekends because I'm not working. But it sounded like my son just woke up. Any other questions? Sunday is a free-for-all FAQ day, so that's why our conversation has drifted all over the place. But any questions about what I do? Any questions about Kenya? That's U.S. stock. Oh, jeez. That's an unanswerable question. I wish I knew, man. I'd be rich. I wish I knew. What's the best U.S. stock to invest in? Typically, historically speaking, the best thing to do is to follow an index, right? So when you follow an index, you essentially are investing in the stock market, or investing in like the entire country. So like Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's strategy, at least what he's publicly made available in his talks, is that he just compounded on like the S&P 500 for a long time. Like the bulk of his portfolio was just Apple. He got in early on Apple, held Apple for a really long time. I don't know if it's still the bulk of his portfolio, but he was just bullish on Apple and held it for a long time. But that's his strategy for everything, is hold it for a long time, which absolutely works, right? So that's also our strategy with our family generational wealth trust fund clients, is that when they do a generational wealth family trust, the strategy there is to compound over years. So that trust never helps the client ever. The trust only helps the beneficiaries who are either their children or their grandchildren. We've actually had a client that did great grandchildren, but that's not typical. So they can put a very small amount of money in that trust. They can put $1,000 in that trust and let that $1,000 compound for 60 years, right? And if that $1,000 compounds for 60 years with a 100% DRIP, DRIP stands for dividend reinvestment program. So if everything that is made from that $1,000 gets 100% reinvested, then in 60 years, that little $1,000 investment can easily be 6 figures, possibly even 7, right? Because that's just how compounding works. So if you have the time, obviously most people aren't like, all right, I'm going to invest now and wait for 60 years, right? So that's why the generational wealth trust funds work so well, because the purpose of them is a completely different generation. So you have enough time to make those trust funds turn into something significant. But yeah, I mean, if you have the time, anything compounding above inflation is going to make big money. going to make big money. So it's just a matter of, diversifying, and having the time and letting it compound out. Um, and the diversification is just a capital preservation strategy. So you're diversifying so that you maintain as much, principal um, as you possibly can. You have the time, no kidding. Yeah, I mean, a lot of our generational wealth folks are in your boat. I would say it's about 80% of our generational wealth clients have no kids. So a lot of them are married, but they don't have any kids at all. Yeah, yeah. A lot of, like, we had one that crushed it. They came in and they did. They had just gotten married. I want to say guy was 24, girl was 21. They took their two tax returns and did a generational wealth trust for their kids. They don't have any kids yet, right? And they put in, I can't remember the exact figure, but it was a little more than $3,000. And based on what was available in sovereign debt, there was a sovereign debt bond that I want to say it was like 16%, and it was either a 25 or 30-year bond. So they were able to guarantee 16% on the principal for the next 30 years. So the dollar amount that they utilized got them to $1 million by the time that their kids were in their 20s. Because remember, they have no kids and they bought a 30-year bond. And so they're planning on waiting, for a little while before they have kids, right? So in their mind, by the time the bond matured, the kid would be around 20, right? And so they plan that out quite beautifully. They don't need to make any additional payments to that trust. That trust feeds itself off of the payments from the bond, and then those bond payments are reinvested, to get that compounding effect. So they're well on their way to that. So yeah, that's, folks who are smart enough to do it then, those are the ones that really, really, really make out. When people ask me, like, what would you tell your younger self? That's what I would do. Like, obviously I do it now because I'm a professional, but I didn't even know about it at 20. So that's what I would definitely tell my younger self, is to create an offshore trust and let that baby compound and go from there. The offshore trust just protects things, right? Like, I've been in car accidents, in my 20s and stuff like that, where if I had a full-on trust already that was domestic, and the attorney for the other vehicle found that, it would have went way differently than it did. You know what I mean? And so that's what the offshore trust is about. It's about, if something happens, even if it's like, technically not your fault or whatever, but you're liable for it through negligence or whatever the case may be. You don't want those things being open to any kind of lawsuit. In generational wealth, yeah, you know what I mean? Because it shouldn't benefit you at all. So in the generational wealth trust, yeah, the drip is typically always 100%, but I mean, you can do whatever you want. The more you pull on the drip, the less the compounding effect has, right? So if you do a 50% drip, it's going to take twice as long for the money to compound into whatever. But if you're legitimately creating generational wealth for your kids or your grandkids, then yeah, you want 100% reinvested. Now, what you want is you want some leeway on the investments, and that'll be something that you put into the trust deed, right? And so the leeway is what the investment is in, right? So like, if you were investing in real estate and then COVID happened, then obviously you can't, well, you could, but obviously you wouldn't necessarily sell your physical real estate, but you might liquidate your positions in REITs, and you might turn around and reinvest those positions somewhere else, right? That might make sense. So you want to make sure that the trustee can do that, right? Because you might not even be there, right? If you're doing a generational wealth trust, there's a chance that halfway through the trust, you no longer living. You know what I mean? So the trustee has to be set up really well so that the trustee can make those investments on your beneficiary's behalf, and keep that going. But eventually you diversify out. Like, eventually, your original principal, you'll have multiples of that number all invested in different, structures and in different industries and so on and so forth. And that's when you start getting to the point where you do the family office. And that might be the point where someone in your family decides to move permanently to Singapore or something like that and run the family office from there. But over time, and it's not a lot of time, like over a relatively short amount of time, that that trust will compound to something significant. And then the family has significant money. Now, did you handle the educational part of building a dynasty family? Because that's where people screw up. The money is actually easy, right? Because compounding is super easy. So the money is actually ridiculously easy. The hard part is the education. So now, do your descendants have financial literacy? Do you have a family constitution that has a conflict resolution clause so that the first major problem that happens in the family doesn't fracture the family and half the family isn't talking to the other half the family over something stupid, costing you guys millions of dollars in net worth per year because your family's not united, right? So all of these things have to be in place to actually build a real dynasty family. Everybody focuses on the money, which is the easy part. You can literally drop $100 and let that $100 compound, for 100 years, and it might turn into $10 million with no additional monies being put in there except for the 10% on the interest of that $100 that's being reinvested every year, right? Because it's such a small amount of money, it's going to take a large amount of time. But those are the two different factors, right? Is either large amount of money and small amount of time, or large amount of time and small amount of money. But those are the two factors, right? So compounding is the easy part. It just doesn't affect you. That's where people, like greedy people, they want the money in their pocket, right? They're not trying to think of the next generation. So that's where like they're not willing to compound out because it probably won't affect you unless you started with $1 million. You know what I mean? All right, that's a different situation. But if you started with some kind of reasonable amount of money, it's typically not going to help you, other than your kids might be in a real good position when you're old, and so they're able to take care of you with some of the trust fund money, right? Because you might have made them into millionaires, and now you're old and maybe you need some assistance, and they assist you. But other than that, it's not for you. So your individual wealth plan and your generational wealth plan have to be two completely separate plans. But yeah, the money part's super easy. You just got to make sure the education part's there, or else the statistics are like abysmal, right? Like the ones who don't have the education are in, I think, 75 or 80% that fail in the first generation. So the money's there. Again, the money's the easy part, but then that first generation blows it all, right? Because the education's not there. And then even after that first generation doesn't blow it, they have to maintain the traditions established in the family constitution. So there's like a 50-50 on the next generation. Once you get past that, you're pretty much good. There's still that chance that the family might run out of money if they're not good stewards, and stewardship ends up being part of the education. But once you get past the second generation, you're fairly golden. And sometimes you can be alive for that. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you can be great grandpa. So you saw obviously you had your kids, then you saw the grandkids, and now there's great grandkids. So you can actually be alive and kind of stare that if you start early enough, right? So Emmanuel's like, I'm in my early 20s. He could be alive for that. I didn't have my first kid until I was 42. So I ain't betting on any great grandkids. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll get lucky and see some grands, but I ain't betting on any great grands. Yeah, man, you're totally welcome. Anybody else with any other questions for me? Bro, ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with that at all. So it's an interesting thing. Age is an interesting thing. In the way that people acknowledge you, right? And in the way that people take what you say to heart, right? And so I don't really think, I know Gary Vee talks about this a lot, right? I don't really think that you being, older is a negative impact on your legacy building. I think it's a positive impact on your legacy building. And I'll give you an example. My first business that I did as a sole proprietor was I taught martial art classes at the YMCA. I was under the age of 18. I was like 16 or something like that. I had started doing martial arts at the age of 7, right? So I was qualified. I was just young. And so I signed like a contract with the YMCA and I taught martial arts there for a couple years. And then when I hit 18, I actually went and opened my own school and I registered a company and all that stuff, right? And so when I hit 18, I had won a world championship. Now there are all these different. There's NASCA, there's SKI, there's all these different things, right? So there's like 30 world champions at the same time, more than that, probably 3,000 world champions at the same time, whatever, right? But I had won a world championship and all of that. You know, I was super qualified. I trained in China. If you guys are checking out like my personal page, you'll see my kung fu instructor, and he's still alive. And we just met up in China, and I'll probably open a kung fu club here for free for the orphans and all of that, right? So I say all of that to say, when the internet started, this is back in like MySpace days, even pre-MySpace days. So there was something called ICQ, right? But when the internet started, we were all on the internet talking to each other, right? And I was a specialist. I was, an extreme expert at what I did. And I would mention something about what I did, right? X, Y, and Z is the way to achieve A, B, and C, right? But there was a picture of me, like there was MySpace and all of that. So there's a picture of this young guy saying that X, Y, and Z is the way to achieve A, B, and C, okay? No understanding that I've been doing this for, more than 10 years, right? 7 to 17 would have been 10 years. So like I'm grown now. So I've been doing this for like 15 years at the age of 23. You know what I mean? Like, all right. So no understanding that I've been doing this for the same amount of time that people take to become doctors, and I know what I'm talking about. All they can see is the face, right? And then so one of my original martial arts masters, old Chinese guy, his name was Gu Gao Yi from Wudang Temple, he passed. And when he passed, I had put his picture up as a memorial, right? But if you guys remember MySpace, adding a picture, if you press the wrong button, there were like 2 buttons right next to each other. And if you press the wrong button, it replaced your profile picture. So I pressed that button by mistake. And it ended up creating this really interesting kind of case study for me, because this old grandmaster, this Chinese picture went into my profile picture and I didn't notice it at first. And now I'm talking. Now, every time I used to say X, Y, and Z is how you get to ABC, I would get super pushback. You don't know what you're talking about. Super crazy pushback, right? So I just go on about my business. XYZ is how you get to ABC. But now there's a 70-year-old Chinese guy with the big white beard and and the same people are on MySpace. Oh, great master, your wisdom. Oh. Just because they saw, right, this older face versus my regular profile picture, right? So I'm not certain that in generational wealth building and in family building and in dynasty building, being the older patriarch of the family and speaking from that position versus being the 20-year-old who got their stuff together and they're doing the right planning, I'm not sure that that's not the superior position for impact, right? So I'm not convinced that you're in a bad position there, Eddie. I've noticed that many times before as well. Yeah. I stumbled across it totally by accident, but yeah, when that profile picture switched up, and now all of a sudden there was an old Chinese man saying the exact same thing as the 22-year-old black guy, and everybody received it as though it was the greatest kung fu wisdom they've ever heard in their life, versus arguing with me about what I know. That's when it clicked. Like, oh, wait a minute, perception definitely changes the way that people receive these messages. So Emmanuel, you might be the one to deal with more about what does this young guy know? What does he know? Let me push back against him I don't think he knows what he's talking about versus an Eddie, who's over 40 and they're like, oh, yep, he got that. He knows what he's talking about, which may not be the case. The young guy might really know what he's doing and the old guy might have no clue, but for some reason, that's how people absorb things. So yeah, man. No, I think you're in a great position, bro. Think you're in a great position to guide the family and make it happen. I think you're capable of consistency now, more so than maybe you would have been at 20. You know, I was an anomaly because I had been doing martial arts since 7. So I was able to get up and do martial arts exercise every day. I was able, like, that was something I knew to be possible. So consistency wasn't difficult for me in my 20s. But for most 20-year olds, that's not the case. Right? So I consult in our community a lot nowadays, and people listen. Yeah, yeah. You get a little bit older, and all of a sudden, you know, people hear what you got to say. Yes, I think you're definitely on the right track there. I think you'll definitely build something pretty solid. Part of why I have folks like King's Mama who are now considered right, right, exactly, exactly. That's exactly it. I used to have like mentees in business, and sometimes I tell them that they're just too young, and not for any other reason than the way that society was like viewing them. Like I can guarantee you, if you come back in 10 years and do the exact same thing, your business will, blow up. And right now, they're just looking at you like you just don't know anything, you know, and we actually had a kid. We actually had a mentee that went ahead and just hired somebody. Like they owned the company, so they could be, the president of the board essentially, and they just hired a CEO that was 40, and immediately. It's like, oh yeah, this company's for real, But it was the same person running it. They just hired a front man. So yeah, interesting. Definitely an interesting aspect of human psychology. That's 2 liters, 2 liters of water. See the kind of things that us old guys concern ourselves with. How many liters of water have you drank today? It's 8 in the morning. It's almost 9, 8:56. I got 2 liters in so far. I'm shooting for four. Shooting for four today. You drink 1 gallon a day. Jesus. Wait. What's 1 gallon? 4 liters? 4 liters. All right. All right. Yeah, I'm shooting for the same thing. Since I've been over here, I haven't seen pints and quarts and gallons. You know what I mean? So now I'm learning. I'm learning metric. Everything's milliliters and liters out here. See the old guys over here talking about our water intake. See? These are the things that excite us now. Barbecue grills and water intake. Yeah, listen. I know that's true. And I never really liked it, but I like dessert type stuff. But I never really liked like super sweet things. It always tastes fake to me. Like a Pop Tart tastes like so ridiculously convolutedly fake. So I really appreciate the fact that sweet things here are not like they would not be considered sweet in America at all. I enjoyed that in China too. Like when I lived in China, sweet things were not like chock full of sugar. Um, and I think sugar tastes better out here because it comes from a sugar cane, not a sugar beet. Sugar in America typically comes from a sugar beet, and so there's actually a flavor difference for me. I can taste the flavor difference. So like I can totally taste sugar beet sugar, when it's poured into something versus sugar cane sugar. And you can see the difference. Like white sugar here is actually brown. And then like dark brown sugar is still like molasses mixed into that white sugar, but white sugar is just pressed out of the sugar cane. So it's actually brown out here. I was just talking barbecue grill to my old lady. Yeah, man. That's what we do. That's what we do. I was ticked off. I ordered a Ninja uh, electric grill, a barbecue grill one, the Ninja one. I ordered the stand. The stand got here, and then the order for the grill got canceled. But those things you order from Amazon UK, so your Amazon account works, and you can order from Amazon US, but US voltage is 120 volt. Voltage here is 230. So it's closer to the British standard. So if you order from Amazon UK, the plug is the same and it's designed for that 230 40 volt power system. So anytime I want an electronic that's not sold in this market, I typically end up having to go to Amazon UK to get the one that plugs in properly. Yeah. Yeah, the voltage is different, and I think the hertz are different. So yeah, probably did charge your phone super quick. There are certain things like phones that are designed to kind of adapt to whatever voltage standard you're in. Xboxes do the same thing. Typically, any of those things that where the plug has like a big box and then you plug the plug into the box and then plug it into the device and the other side goes into the wall. That box, normally part of what it's doing is figuring out what the voltage is and turning it into whatever it needs to be stepped down or stepped up to for the device you have. So laptops, Xboxes, I assume PlayStations, what else? Cell phones. Trying to think of things in general that do that. Can't think of anything else, but those things typically deal with it pretty well. Outside of those things, like we have an espresso machine. The first one was from the US. It blew up as soon as you plugged it in. So then we had to get another one from the UK, and that one's fine. Same thing with like air fryers. Like those things, they're so electric intensive. You got to have the right voltage, or they just don't work. Yeah, it's some kind of right. It's either a surge protector or a regulator or a step up and step down transformer, or in some cases it's even what's it called? Um, oh, it's an inverter. So in some cases it's even like an inverter, and so but yeah, if you see that, you're typically okay. But other than that, you always have to purchase a surge protector that has an inverter in it. So yeah, that's a lifestyle hack that people don't typically ask questions about. Most of the things though you can just buy here. It's only like the stuff that like if you order like a specific espresso machine, like we have a what is it? We have a Ninja uh, what is it called? It's a Ninja Pro or something like that. So that's not on the local market. So then we bring that in through Amazon because that's the one that they wanted. So stuff like that. They wanted like the glass air fryer where after you cook the stuff, you can like put the lid on it and just put it in the fridge and like, you know what I mean? So that again wasn't on this market. So that was brought in, through Amazon. But most of the other stuff, like I wouldn't like order a TV or something, just go to the store and buy one, you know what I mean? Fridge, we just bought a fridge here and all that stuff. So we do have a lot of clients though that like they'll bring their whole house with them though, because you do get a tax exemption if you have a proper permit that was created by or that was applied for by a professional. You need so many years of permit and all of that stuff. So if you get the proper permit that's so many years out, you do get an import tax exemption, and you can bring one container of your stuff from the United States. Yeah, yep. You can log into your US Amazon account and then just switch to you would go, I'm trying to remember where it is. I feel like it's on your profile. You'd go in there and there'd be like an American flag, and you'd click the American flag and just switch it to the British flag, and you'd automatically switch to Amazon UK, and it's the same account. Some Amazons are a little odd. Like Amazon Dubai only ships to Dubai. So, but UK is the one that has the same kind of plug as the Kenyan plug, which makes sense because it's a British colony, former British colony. So it makes sense that that's their electric standard. Yeah, yeah. That's all you got to do is switch the flag, and then you can switch it back. Yeah. So I don't know if it's necessarily better than Jumia or Alibaba, but for those products that you're already used to, like there's no Ninja products on Jumia or Alibaba. Well, Alibaba, I don't know, but Jumia definitely not. And I feel like Alibaba, if you find it, you find it like from the original manufacturer, so like it doesn't say Ninja on it or whatever. But then you're like, the risk is this the manufacturer that makes the stuff for Shark, or is this a copycat? So that's the unsettling part about Alibaba. But Jumia, those particular products just weren't found. There's something called, there's another thing like Jumia, but the whole premise of it is it imports things from overseas. So then you end up paying more because, they're purchasing it in country and then putting a markup on it and then shipping it to you. So then you end up paying more than you would have via, Amazon. So, you know, for those things, we just go to Amazon and grab them. But it's really like one-off, like odd things. Like I used to use like an Norelco one blade. So it has like a special razor and the blah 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 blah. And there's just nobody uses it here. So the razor, you can't, like, I could buy it in Walmart in the United States, just buy the razor, but you just can't find it here. So like little one-off things like that is essentially, what we buy. So then you make it into a thing because you got to pay the import taxes, right? But the import taxes don't necessarily go up with the amount of things that you buy, right? Unless there's like a special import tax on something. So then, like, typically when we do an Amazon order, we'll just wait till it's like 1,000, and we'll get like the one or two things that we want, and then a bunch of like kind of novelty things, you know what I mean? And we'll spend $1,000 because the import fee is going to be the same thing. And then we like there's a maple syrup that I can't get here. That's like a specific like craft maple syrup, not craft the company, but like craft production, right? Like a craft beer, right? And so, but they also sell on Amazon. So I'll have like a case of 6 of those, like shipped out with whatever, or or like Dickies jeans have this triangle pocket on the side that fits my cell phone perfectly. And so like I'll order a couple pairs of jeans that I can't find here, or like whatever, and just make it $1,000 purchase so that I get the biggest bang for the import fee, essentially. So there's that. But yeah, most stuff I just buy locally. Right. Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's not many things that that I use that I can't buy here. Most of the things that are in the house right now that I couldn't buy here are Ninja appliances. We got a lot of Ninja appliances. Other than that, there's not a whole lot, that I couldn't find here. All our TVs are from here. We have a Samsung fridge or an LG fridge or something. It's from here. Um, yeah, yeah. Most of the stuff we just buy here. Right. All right, guys. I am approaching 3 hours. Any other questions or comments? If not, I shall end the live. Any other questions or comments? Oh, no problem, but Eddie. Yeah, man. Always good to see you, brother. I appreciate that. Any questions or comments before I end the live? You don't see Eddie's comments because you're on a separate live. Eddie's on YouTube. So if you're on Facebook or TikTok, you won't see Eddie's comments. All right. Looks like we're good. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me for the 2 hours, 51 minutes, and 6 seconds. And I'm going to take off. All right, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll be here same time.